Tim, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Last time we saw each other, of course, was in Halifax for the Juno Awards. How was that for you, man? Seeing such great talent getting up there, and of course, Maestro getting his flowers and being inducted. How was all that for you, man?
I thought that Halifax was a superb Junos. Personal note, love being in Halifax.
Yeah.
Great place to be. Spent a lot of time with Jen Grant then. We had a great jam suite at the Junos, like a lot of musicians. There probably was on the final night, there was probably 100 people in our suite. Everybody playing music. Superb. We arranged a little hockey game, classified, got a hockey game. I thought the show was really good.
Yeah.
I think that this addition, like we're with Warner Music, and Warner Music has signed a deal with an Asian Indian label, and I thought that their performer and the whole opening that whole world of hip hoppy Asian hip hoppy was so great. It was so interesting. So yeah, I just thought I thought the whole show was great, and I was really pleased that most people sang live.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I've only got one complaint about Halifax, man.
What?
I didn't know about the hills. I did not know about the hills, and I got the shock of my life. I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I mean, you have heard of Citadel Hill,
yeah.
Citadel Hill. Yeah, no, it's you know what, I mean, of course, I've been going there for years, but my daughter went to uni there for 4 years, and
Mhm.
she had university energy, and she lived in the North End, and obviously the universities in the West. We would go up and over and up and over. And by the time I would come to my shows, I'm like, Emma, I can't do this. This is exhausting. But yeah, it's a hilly place.
It is. You know, it's funny because we're going to talk about your new album that's going to be released, I do believe June 14th, if I've got the correct date. But there's so many other things to talk about too. Congratulations, Songwriters Hall of Fame. What's going on with that, brother?
Wow, that's a great honor. Greg and I have already called each other to congratulate each other. You know, I think that when Greg and I started this whole thing in 1978, just said, you know, want to get a band together, sure, was done very casually. And I think every step along the road has been just a very casual acceptance and an opportunity that we've just grabbed. And to then be recognized, we've had a lot of recognition for ourselves as a band and ourselves as individuals, but ourselves as entertainers. But to be recognized for songwriters, which is sort of at the heart of what we do, is really a very special honor.
What is it about the two of you? What's the magic in the songwriting? And also capturing not just a unique sound, but we're proud to say a Canadian sound and telling not just stories, but Canadian stories.
Well, I think that there was a lot of that was being at the, you know, having the right level of failure at the right time. Like by the time we came back from New York, we were just tired of being that band that just created music to try to get a record contract. We just didn't want to do that. We wanted to do what came naturally to us. There was a few guiding lights at the time when we came back to Toronto in '84. And one of them would certainly be Gordon Lightfoot, seeing him bomb around in his old New Yorker in Toronto, and just knowing that he could live anywhere he wanted and he could write about whatever he wanted. But he chose to live in, be absorbed by, and write about Canada. And I think that that was inspiring for us to just say, look, let's just write about the things we know. And it just happened to be at a time when Canadian audiences were, whether they knew it or not, they were kind of sick of being fed American and British stories. And they were just, they woke up to songs that were more about themselves. I mean, I always say that when Canadian audiences first saw the Hip, they knew somebody like everyone in that band. They knew somebody like Gord Downie. They knew somebody like Paul Langlois. They knew them. They went to school with them. They were familiar characters. And so there was no problem absorbing that. And maybe the same is true for us, that people knew this duality, the one rough guy, the one smooth guy, and they keep switching positions. So I think that a lot of it was just a convergence of we were lucky to come along at the right time, and it was our inclination anyway. We would have been doing it anyway.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny. I lately, because I've switched TV sources, and one of the things I've been watching a lot on this TV source is retro videos. And they show a lot of 80s, 90s, 2000s. And whenever I get a chance to watch you guys on this, and even with a lot of Canadian acts, I forget how good you guys are and were back then, because back then, of course, that was the new music. Did you realize, when you look back now, I guess is the question, you look back and go, damn, I was pretty good back then, because you guys were really, really good.
That's very kind, Rudy. I think that Canadian bands, you know, you had to make your bones in the bars.
Yeah.
Until Much Music, there wasn't a lot of exposure for bands across the country. And there wasn't a lot of, I mean, when we came back to Toronto from New York, you know, we got the most cursory rejection letters from record companies. I mean, from record companies that, you know, one that ultimately signed us for exactly the songs we sent in. But there was this really strong acceptance in the bars, and you really, everybody took it seriously, you know, starting with Handsome Ned. I mean, obviously Handsome Ned went off the path with, you know, because of drugs, but to begin with, he was a tireless worker. He had a great band. They played well. There's a lot of people that had woodshedded for years to come back and be good guitar players. The type of music we play, roots music, is not easy. It's not like punk music. It's not like basic rock. It requires some skill.
And
we were
if I
lucky.
can interrupt, you're also dealing with grunge at the same time too.
Right, but I mean, you know, we were firmly in the roots camp, and
Yeah.
that roots camp was very popular on Queen Street, and it appealed to a lot of people. We had this element of jamming that was certainly embodied in Bobby Wiseman, so we were different than other bands. We had two singers. I mean, there was pressure to be good, but that pressure was we put that pressure on ourselves too. So I think that by the time that a lot of Canadian bands got signed and were making videos, we were good bands. We were maybe not road worthy, but we were certainly bar worthy. And being a good bar band, we were very proud of that for a long time. You know, we were always chasing Dave Wilcox bar records. You know, everybody we go is, oh, Dave Wilcox has the bar record. Oh, we're going to go for it. You know, we'll see if we can sell another $1,000 worth of beer. But even though that was a joke, that was like trying to entertain 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 500 people, and really make sure they came back. So I think there was a very strong work ethic with all the bands at that time.
So when we now talk about when you guys are, like, from time to time, the first group to be playing at the Budweiser stage, you know, for the summer festivals, or Massey Hall is a home to you guys, that kind of, like, you know, you got to pat yourself on the back there and going, we stuck to our guns and look where we are.
It's very difficult to say, look where we are, we did it. Right. I think that, you know, there's a certain amount of good fortune that goes along with that. We know a lot of great musicians. We know a lot of people that play better than us. Maybe they don't have the songs, but there's a lot of great musicians out there. And I think that one of the first times we've actually congratulated each other was recently when we talked on the phone about the Songwriters Hall of Fame, because Greg and I really did work at our songwriting, and we were competitive with each other, not cutthroat, but pushed each other. And that helped. But as a band, you know, you look in the mirror and you think, this isn't all me. You know, it's not. Don't get a big head, because I think that there's a lot of leveling that goes with that. You know, I think you play when you're first starting, you play to a lot of people that aren't interested. You hope that you rope them in, but once you have an audience, you have to keep them entertained and you have to keep them interested. So it's all just work. And there's very few times when we've just sat back and thought, wow, we were fantastic. because that just leads to disaster, right, Rudy?
I hear you.
Then the
No,
next
I
thing
hear
you're
you.
going to fall on your face, so we don't do
I
that.
hear you. I hear you. But look, man, what's fantastic is this new album coming out. So let's make this official. What's the name of the new album? And to me, in a lot of ways, everything we just talked about is representing this album you wrote and recorded.
Well, thank you. This record's called All the World Fades Away. Now, All the World Fades Away, as people have been hearing it, they said, wow, that's a real downer title. I thought, I never meant it like that because it goes, all the world fades away when I'm with you. It's supposed to be like a very romantic line. So I think of it as a positive thing. There's a number of songs. Obviously, there's a lot of memory songs because a lot of it was written during the pandemic. And we have a country place up there and I was by myself and I just get up in the morning, I'd start playing, then I'd go for a walk and come back, play some more. And I was just mining what I've kept in my mind for so long. And it was really good to have the time to really sculpt these songs. I was under no time constraints because we were in the pandemic and who knew when anything was going to start again. Also, when I was about 3/4 of the way through, Greg phoned, said we should make a Blue Rodeo record. So I stopped one day and then started writing for Blue Rodeo and said, I need 6 weeks and I'll be ready. And then we made that record, did all the touring, etc. But I think when I go back to these songs now, I'm proud of them because I never cut any corners. I really finished each story. Each story has a meaning to me. I hope that when I go out and tour, I can tell a little bit about the songs and where they came from, if that's of interest to people. And it's not, there are elements of melancholy on this record. That's certainly the way I lean, and it's also what my voice does. But there's also very positive things on this record, and I just wanted to accomplish a few things, and one of them was to just say how much I loved life, and how lucky I am to be where I am and have the people in my life that I have in my life.
Learn to live alone. Can I tell you, man, that is such a throwback video and throwback song. Like I got excited watching it. Because and I'm going to say this to all artists, they need to watch this video when they're making videos because these kind of videos aren't made anymore. Where was the inspiration behind all of that? And what time of the year was that made? Because for folks who haven't seen it, there's a snow part that happens and stuff. Like it's cool. It's very cool.
The song is really about what I jokingly but seriously think is one of the foundations of a long-term relationship, which is time spent alone. I think that, independence is really important in long-term relationships. The more you're married, joined at the hip, the more difficult it is to develop individual traits and individual interests. My wife and I have spent a lot of time apart because, number one, of what I do, but also way back when we were in New York, she used to come up to Toronto every summer to work at the film festival. So she was gone for 3 months, and that got harder and harder. It was easy at the beginning because we were sort of separate lives, but then it got harder and harder. And so I always jokingly say, that when my wife, because I don't get a lot of time alone in my home, I always jokingly say when my wife decides to go on a trip, I say, oh, you should definitely do that. And don't just take 3 days. You should take 5 days. You hardly ever get away. And then after 24 hours, I'm bored out of my mind. I'm calling her, wondering when she's going to come home. But the video you got to get to know Jen Grant. Jen Grant is somebody I've gotten to know over the last number of years. She toured with Blue Rodeo, really got to know her then, but I've known her for years, but really got to know her then. Then my sons and I were touring out east in small theaters, and we got stopped by the hurricane and spent about 5 days in Halifax, a lot of it with Jen. And we did a video for Scars then with her. She is a cottage industry. She and her husband, Dan, they do their own marketing. They do their own videos. They make their own records. Dan plays a lot of the instruments. Jen writes songs. They do everything. And Jen offered to make a video. And when I saw the video for Scars, I thought, man, you are really good. So anyway, She came to Toronto. Her brother is a very successful cinematographer. And we made that around our studio. And, you can't control the weather in Toronto. You never know what it's going to be like. But filming snow is about the best thing possible. It's like dropping confetti on a scene. It's absolutely beautiful. As long as you're not worried about wrecking your guitar, it's just magic. And so I think that anything I have done with Jen, and it's quite a bit now. We just did one for Impossible. Everything with Jen brings out a lot of personality, and I admire that. I think that she has a lot of artistry as well, but it does focus on personality of the song or the singer, and so I think it's there. She does beautiful work.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. By the way, I was wondering if that was the studio because
Yeah.
I've been in there and I was
Of
like,
course.
is that somewhere? I was like,
Yeah, you
okay.
got
So
it.
you confirmed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Tour happening. You're going to be on tour with your band, and also Canada Day is going to be a special spot for you too.
Canada Day will be in Hamilton. We've got sporadic gigs throughout the summer. There's a lot of Blue Rodeo summer stuff. And then I start touring this record in the fall. I think I start in Montreal, September, I'm not sure, 10, 11, something like that. But then
Fantastic.
it goes through September, and then October I have to do something else. And I'm doing a cruise in I'm doing a cruise. Rudy, you want my life to make you jealous? I'm doing a cruise from Lyon to Avignon out through the Burgundy Valley. We're going, yeah. So that's with my sons and Lindsay, and yeah. So that'll be really beautiful. And then I come back and do the West in November.
You're living a good life, man. I'm so happy for you.
Lucky.
So,
Thank you.
so happy for you. Look, I'm going to let you go. Congratulations on the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Much deserved to the both of you. Congratulations with this new album. Just congratulations on your whole career and how you and your band and Blue Rodeo have represented Canadians in such a beautiful and wonderful way in telling our stories through your eyes. It's been an amazing journey. And thank you for me to be able to interview you for all these years. As we mentioned just before we started, this is the first time we've done a Zoom interview because every single one of our interviews have always been in person. But it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor to represent. And it's always nice to talk to you, Rudy.